Sup folks, this is Dan from Discern, and these are my thoughts on the new album from Sho Baraka, The Narrative. Sho Baraka is a hip-hop artist and rapper from Atlanta, Georgia. Through his 10-plus year career, he has gone from a Reach Records artist, part of the 116 Clique, to an independent artist on his own label, to now, just this year, a part of the Humble Beast label. Over the last year or so, he's been working and collaborating with producer James Portier on a project called Louis Portier, writing what was supposed to be a simple EP. But while working with James, this EP blossomed into a full-length album that was going to be called The Introduction to Louis Portier. Well, that album never really solidified, it was never released, and while I'm not positive of this, I wouldn't be surprised if that collaboration was the roots of this new album, his fourth full-length album, The Narrative. Sho Baraka, more than any other artist I can think of in Christian hip-hop, has made massive leaps from album to album. From his first album, Turn My Life Up, to his next, Lions and Liars, was a big step forward. And then he topped that step with his next album, Talented 10th, a fantastic record, musically, thematically, and a further step up in Sho's own rap skill and finesse. So he set the bar incredibly high when it comes to previous album comparisons. And on this new record, The Narrative, I think he does as good as anyone would expect in the context of his discography. This album stands tall, not heads and shoulders above Talented 10th, but showing he hasn't lost any bit of skill and creativity, and it shows he can flex these same muscles in a variety of musical contexts, as this album features a lot of live instrumentation and soul, jazz, and funk styles, sounds that Sho fits snugly right into. Before I dive into some particulars of this album, I must confess that I feel inadequate in my understanding of the entirety of this album. From the grand picture and theme of The Narrative to the specifics of historical events pointed out, to in the dates actually listed after each song title, to the many, many people and places and events he speaks about within the lyrics. There's a lot to miss or to learn about, depending on how you look at it. In fact, just today, before I recorded this video, I came across a 3.5-hour podcast interview with Sho Baraka that includes a track-by-track discussion. To be able to spend that much time talking about the album and each track tells you something about how much is packed into this album. I will link to that podcast below in the description box. I am certainly going to check it out because I got things to learn. And I think Sho is a gifted thinker and an observer of the culture, so I'm eager to sit down and soak it in. As this album starts with the track Forward 1619, you get the feeling he's picking up where he left off, saying his book isn't over. There's more to the conversation, presumably, that he started in the album Talented 10th. In this new album, he continues talking about race, history, culture, politics, social progress or lack thereof, slavery and freedom, all conversations he was having on his previous album. And this opening track in particular speaks to these themes even from the title, with the date 1619 being the year in which the first African slave arrived in America. But this album is not limited to just continuing the race and culture-related conversations of the previous record. You see this on a majority of the tracks, but he also has songs about marriage, fatherhood, his personal story and musical career, and even basic experiences like growing up, being in your 30s. And he even has a little fun with it too at times. There's some funny and lighthearted moments, especially in his expressive and theatrical rap style at times, almost as if he's playing a character. Now, if you're thinking, especially if you've listened to Talented 10th, his previous album, If you're thinking, I don't want to get too buried in the deep thought and cultural critique that this album gets into, don't be too worried. Firstly, there are still a good handful of moments and even whole tracks that are much more readily accessible and emotionally resonant that will keep your attention and keep your interest. In particular, there's the songs 30 and Up, Road to Humble, Words, and Fathers, which are relatable, maybe not directly, as we haven't lived the personal experiences of Sho Baraka, but they're about topics that don't take a broader understanding of cultural or historical contexts in order to appreciate. They're simple, they're self-contained, but still thoughtful, cleverly expressed, and deeply emotional, especially in the case of the song Words, which is a track about his experience raising a son with autism, a potentially crippling and aggravating life experience given the difficulties, but it's a blessing and a gift that Sho communicates with wisdom and with beauty. Another one of the songs, actually, I just mentioned, Fathers, is actually a track I previously reviewed on this channel a few months ago. I'll put a link on the screen and in the description box to that video. If you're looking for a deeper discussion and analysis, really diving into that track, go check that one out. At the time, I did not know that it was going to be part of this full-length album. It came out around Father's Day, but here it is on the album. Second thing that I think can keep your attention, keep your interest despite whether or not you're tracking with the thread that Sho is weaving, the music. In terms of production, this album is not your typical rap or hip-hop sound. It's not trap, although there is a little bit of that in there. It's not boom bap, it's not cloud rap. The sounds here, influenced very deeply by Sho Baraka's work and collaboration with producer James Portier, is an intriguing mix of hip-hop, soul, old school styles, break beats, live instrumentation, and styles popularized by artists like James Brown and Ray Charles. You see this production especially in the songs Soul, Love, 30 and Up, and Prophet. The musical style and genre characteristics of each of these songs seem to actually pull inspiration from the date listed in the title of each song, whether 80s or 60s or even present day. The production has great flexibility to jump between these styles while keeping a consistent thread throughout the record. A touch and a blend of hip-hop, R&B, soul, funk, and jazz. And the modern sounding tracks are tracks that get more boldly expressive and a little more adventurous in their sounds and styles, especially in the song Excellent 2017, the only track with a future date, a track which the song indicates as trap jazz. It's a risky and messy sound, a booming bass and low end with a twitchy flute track. Odd, but I admire the originality. The other modern tracks like Kanye, brilliantly imitating the Kanye vocal style and even production style. It's very similar to Gold Digger. There's also the track Here, an upbeat song with sharp horns, bright piano, and a great halftime groove. And other tracks like Road to Humble, My Hood USA, and Father, and the album closer, Piano Break, all have excellent instrumental performances. You can feel the live human touches from the percussive nature of the drums and the piano and guitar and bass. There's human and instrument interaction and synergy that comes through, which is a great sound to hear on a hip-hop album. Overall, despite what I know I'm currently missing from this album, despite the gems I know I'm not seeing or appreciating, this is a fantastic record. It's musically engaging and dynamic. Sho Baraka's wordplay is poetic and fluid, clever and smart as usual. And the lyrics, from what I can apprehend, is thoughtful and worthy of chewing on and hearing a few times over. Sho Baraka, he's one of the forward leaders of, I guess, conscious hip hop within Christian hip hop. He's authentically intellectual. He's particular and precise in his word choice, thoughtful in his articulation, and he tackles a lot of cultural, social, and worldview issues. And he has the rare gift to compile all the data, all the discussions and arguments around these issues, and condense it all down into slick, flowing bars and astounding turns of phrase. It's one thing for an artist to be a critical thinker. It's a whole other thing to be a critical speaker, to funnel and channel these critical thoughts through concrete communication. And as a Christian, it's refreshing that Sho Baraka takes these critical thoughts and reflections and approaches them with a biblical, Christ-exalting worldview. He doesn't miss Christ on this album. He keeps the life-changing reality of the gospel in view when he speaks about changing the culture and addressing societal problems. He's not the only artist to be doing this faithfully. In fact, I think he's on tour right now with Propaganda, who is also an artist who does that really well. But it's a breath of fresh air to hear someone strike a sensible and consistent balance between fixing the culture and preaching the good news of the gospel. Culture is, sort of the collective worldview of a community of people. And to promote Christ as the one true savior of culture is right on. I mean, if we promote a culture fix that leaves the gospel behind, we're only helping people gain the world and lose their souls. What we all need at our very cores, regardless of how good or bad the picture of our culture looks, is to have a right relationship with God, and that's only possible through the substitutionary work of Jesus on our behalf, dealing with our sin, clothing us in his righteousness. There are links in the description box below for you to hear this album for yourself. Please be aware, if you are buying this album, there are actually 3 tracks that are exclusive to iTunes. They're on Spotify too, so if you hear it on Spotify, but if you're buying the album on Amazon or another digital distributor or on CD, you'll actually miss out on the tracks, maybe both Road to Humble and My Hood USA. So, in other words, get it on iTunes, I guess. Also down in the description box is a link to Sho Baraka's Twitter. Check him out over there. Give him a follow. Alrighty, folks. Thanks for watching this album review. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. New album reviews release every Friday, and new track reviews release every Wednesday. If you have a question or a comment for me about this album, about my thoughts about this album, or about something else, let me know. You can comment below this video. You can tweet at me at discernreviews, or you can send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Have you heard this album from Sho Baraka? What did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? If you've been following him since his Reach Records days, what do you think of his progression in sound, from then to now? I hope you have a chance to check this record out. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think, good or bad. Anyway, I hope this helps. See ya.